Looks like we have a pair of 1985 Royals. Well, guys, some of you might remember these Royals from the overnight in Japan, and they're really beat. I'm not going to lie to you. I've seen a lot of requests for this restoration, so hope it's worth it. Let's get into it. So let's go ahead and get one of these out of the way, and if I can just throw it. And that's because this one already has the laces out. So here's what we're dealing with. This has a number of major issues. Take a look at the back. That's probably going to be issue 1, but look at the wings. For those of you that know me, you know that I hate touching the wings on an Air Jordan 1985, but these we have no choice. It's either that the blue's been scraped off or there is some paint on top of it. I'm really not sure what the case is yet, but we'll see when we get the acetone out. I'm hoping it's a latex paint on top of it and we can just acetone it out, but we really won't know till we get started. So let's get to scrubbing. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with the tongue as usual. What's nice about these, as beat as they are, they're really not that bad structurally. The padding's still there. There's still plenty of writing on the insole. These tongues are super nice on these. I'm looking forward to doing these and seeing how they turn out. They were dirt cheap, guys. This is before the Last Dance effect, obviously, but man, I think these were $200. I'm not sure, we'll clarify that, but pretty cheap. And we're gonna do the inside real good, even though the inside is squeaky clean on these. I don't know if they were clean prior to sending to me or what, but the insides are nice. And anytime you see that Nike Air in the insole, that's good. That's a good day. All right, now move on to the medium bristle. And just like always, we're doing one panel at a time, and we're gonna do our hand scrubbing first before we take out the power scrubber. And as always, the links are in the description if you want any of this stuff. And the power scrubber, I highly recommend it. I'm gonna barely do the soles on here because there's a good chance that we'll be sole swapping these. I'm gonna check it out at the end and we'll make the call, but I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on these soles. They have a ton of what looks like tar or that paint. I'm not sure if it's the paint from up top or not, but the good news is after getting the top wet, I don't know if you can see this or not, it's looking like that's paint on top of the wings, so that's really good news for us. Hopefully we can be careful enough to take that off without re-stenciling the wings, but we'll know later. And here comes the power scrubber. Oh yeah, that is definitely paint, guys, and that's making me happy. So it's gonna be really tough to get it off without damaging the wings, but we're certainly gonna try, because anytime we can maintain a factory wings, we wanna do that. Generally speaking, I don't touch them, but we'll make these good. All right, well, I'm a mess already, so let's get these on the dryer and I'll be back when they're dry and squeaky clean. Well guys, we're back. They're clean, they're dry, and not gonna lie to you, they're looking pretty rough. So I'm gonna go ahead and acetone these. We'll blaze right through it, and when I come back, let's figure out what we do about this blue. So as far as prep work goes, I am using acetone, but only on the royal blue sections. The black, I'm gonna use luster cream, so there's no need to prep. Alright guys, these are acetoned and I'm feeling a little bit better about them. What I did is just the blue because the black I think is going to be just fine with luster cream. And unfortunately, we're missing a wings logo. So that paint was paint that came right off, but in doing so it took the wings right off with it. So now we have to stencil the wings, which I hate doing. It's one thing I really try to avoid at all costs, and that is touching the wings logo in general. But this one, there's nothing else we can do, so that's it. All right, let's get the paint and let's get started. All right, now it's time to paint. And for the paint on a Royal 1985, you're gonna find that the shades vary a lot between factories and between how much these were aged. So I have a pretty matching paint here, and it was a mixture of Angelus Royal. I put some blue in it, I put some light blue, and then actually a little white. So I had to bring the color down just a little bit, but it is a perfect match for these, and we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna start with the toe box and work my way out. And again, just doing the blue, I'm not going to do the black. And guys, one thing that I have to tell you when painting royals is when you mix up your paint, make sure you dry it before you adjust your color, because for whatever reason, blues have a bad tendency of changing a lot from wet to dry. You know, all paint will do that, but blue, it's just a little bit worse. So always keep that in mind and match your paint accordingly. With red, I think it's the least worrisome, but blue, there's just something about it. All right, toe box has a good coat on it. I'm gonna move to the heel area, and luckily this area you see back here is not actually scraping. So I think these are actually going to look pretty damn good once they have the new paint on them. So let's get started and we shall see. I'm probably gonna do 2 to 3 coats total and all this stuff. There's a lot to cover and I wanna make sure it's very, very uniform.
Sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted sorrow.
All right, heel cup has a good coat on it. Now it's time for us to move on to the collar straps, and this would normally be where I told you to be really careful around the wings, but as you can see, we have no wings to protect, so we're just gonna go crazy with this. Not gonna lie, it does feel kind of weird painting up here without being careful for wings. But I'll show you guys how to stencil those for a natural look, and just FYI, 85s do have a different size compared to your retro wings. So you want to make sure you get the proper stencils, and I'll see what I can do about finding somebody to make us some. But I've pretty much ordered them from, I don't know, a dozen people over the years, and I've had good success, I've had bad success, but I always give new people a try. I even had a plotter at one point and tried doing it myself, but guys, I just don't like stenciling. I don't like weeding them where you have to cut out the specific areas with a pick. That's probably my least favorite thing to do. And so much can go wrong with stenciling too. Just not a fan. So it's an absolute last resort, and that's where we are in this pair. All right, first coat's on and it is looking good, guys. So as you notice, I'm not painting around the edges. We're leaving it all raw, and there's a couple reasons for this. Number one, I like the original look. I think it's always important to leave little flaws with these shoes because after all, they're 35 years old. But I kind of have somebody in mind for these, and in my last dealings with him, he wanted something that was a little bit more worn looking and something that he could beat around without having to worry about it. So that's kind of the goal we're going with these. I think it's a perfect pair to do that with. And once we get that luster cream on there, we get this blue nice and even, these are gonna be dramatically different already. All right, coat number 2. All right, I have 2 coats down. It is really well covered, so it's time to let this dry. We're gonna come back, assess, and hit that black with the luster cream. And some of you are probably wondering, what about the creases? Why didn't you do them? Well, check this out. Not a lot of creasing left over after the wash, and that is a direct result of having that shoe tree in there and drying these shoes with a heated dryer. So I keep forgetting to do it, but this time I will link that dryer in the description. And they're pretty cheap on Amazon. They're definitely worth it. They help out a lot if you're restoring shoes often. And even if you don't restore shoes often, you just do yours now and then, but clean a lot, it's gonna be your best friend. All right, I'll be back when these are dry with the luster cream and we'll get started. All right, we're back with the luster cream, and almost everything we're using today is Angelus products. I have a link in the description that really helps us out if you buy through that link. It won't cost you anything extra, but it really benefits the channel and it helps us grow. So if you order Angelus, please use that link. This is called luster cream. It's really affordable and it is a slept on product. So it's available in multiple colors, but basically what you want to do is rub it in. Today I'm brushing it. And the results you get without paint are extraordinary. It has a factory sheen to it. It really, really levels everything out. I mean, it's a great product and you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I like to just take a little bit of it, put it in the cap, and you know, today I'm brushing it, but normally I would apply it with a shoe shine kit, essentially. And one of the best parts about this stuff is you don't have to be as careful around stitching, especially when dealing with black. The way this stuff goes on and dries, it is almost like a blender. And what I mean by that is it blends the area. It's not a paint and it is not a polish either. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. So it's Angelus Luster Cream. Now, normally when applying this, you do a really thick coat and then kind of rub it in to polish the leather a bit. With this, I'm brushing it and I'm doing an adequate coat, and you can really see the leather absorb this stuff in as it goes. So you know you are complete when the sheen is perfect, and you don't want it blotchy, so make sure you do consistent. And if you have anything excess, just buff it off. That's what it's there for. All right, I know you guys have heard me say this a million times, and no, I'm not talking about painting the stitching. I am talking about the leather edges on these vintage shoes. Leave them raw. Do not paint over it. That is a terrible, terrible mistake people make, and it ruins the shoe. There's no coming back from that. So once you paint those, forget about it. But if you can avoid it at all costs. So what I'm doing is using a number 5 brush right now and just filling in the big voided areas. And then I'm gonna go back with my micro brush, really get around this check and be very careful, because, I mean, you could wipe it off, but I just don't want to take any chances with this. We've got a lot of excess, but this leather is really soaking it in, so I don't think that's gonna last too long. well, we may end up even doing a second coat. So stay tuned and we'll see. All right, guys, let's let that dry, and then I'm going to give it a quick buffing. Let's take a look at it and figure out what the next step is, but we're about ready for a clear coat and stencil at this point. I'm looking forward to it. All right, we're back, and as you can see, I already put the stencil on. So I'm the last person on earth you should take stencil advice from, so I figured why show you my bad methods when you can just start from here. All right, what I'm gonna do is pour some light, or spray some light sessions, light coats of this Angelus Black with a little bit of tooth in a 50-50 ratio. And when you do stencils, again, I'm not a good person to take advice from, but I like to do super light coats, because if you go too heavy, not a good deal. All right, so there's the stencil, and here we go. We've got a nice light coat down. Go ahead and dry that and give it the second coat. All right, that's nice and dry. We're gonna give it our second coat here, and again, really light spray. If you go too heavy on this, when you pull your stencil off, you're just gonna pull your paint off and it's gonna peel. So that's why you go nice and light here. Can't stress that enough. All right, guys, that is looking good. The 2 coats. And again, I don't want to put it on too thick, so what I call it here, we'll let that dry, pull it off, and I think we'll have some brand new wings. So kind of excited to see. I like them. I mean, I like redoing them when it goes right. I just hate it when it goes wrong. And like I said, I'm not the best at stencils, so keep your fingers crossed, guys. I'll be back in a minute. What do you think, guys? I think they look pretty good. All in all, you know I hate doing the stencil work, but this one turned out pretty good. It's got that natural look to it. All right, so now it's time to lay down the clear coat. And for that, we've got the airbrush out, and we're gonna lay down Angelus Matte Finish acrylic finisher. And we're gonna do that just on the blue areas, because the black, we just used luster cream, so we don't have to add a finisher on it. So today I'm gonna start with the toe box and then work my way to the back. With the finisher, just do a really light coat. You know, you barely have it coming out of a airbrush, and overlap each row by about a half. And you'll get the hang of it. It's not that hard. All right, let's let that dry, and then we're gonna do one more additional step to the luster cream, and that is a little bit of buffing to get the sheen just right. So I'll be right back. All right, we're back, and what I'm gonna do now that the clear coat is dry is buff it with my scrubber here, but I've got the buffing pad on, and what that's gonna do is just really get that luster cream to have a natural finish to it. And it's super easy. All you do is turn this thing on and you buff it just like you're buffing a car. And you'll see a difference right away. I mean, this really goes a long way. We don't want it to get too shiny, so I'm just doing a little pass on here. Looking good. All right, guys, check it out. Let me know what you think. And take a look at this toe box. Keep in mind, we didn't do any crease removal. This is strictly from the wash, stuffing the toe box, and then using heat to dry it. So really, that goes a long way. Take a look. All right, now I hate to do this to you, and I apologize in advance, but these need a soul swap. There's no getting around it. So I already know who these are going to, I think, and they want to wear them, which means we have to swap this soul, and that's going to be a video all in itself, so stay tuned for part 2. Sorry, guys. See you next time.